Thanks for joining us today, everyone. To kick off today's important episode, I'm joined by Matthew Morgan, who's an Associate Partner for Tax Advisory at Findex. Now, they've put together an amazing new platform over the last couple of years, and really excited to look forward to speaking to Matthew further about this. So now I'm joined by Matthew Morgan, who's an Associate Partner for Tax Advisory at Findex. Hi, Matthew. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, Lawrence. Pleasure to be here today.
Thanks, Matthew. It's an absolute pleasure that we're so excited to have Findex launching the Tradeport product at our upcoming event at the Springtime Soiree at the Polly Woodside's event here in South Wharf in Melbourne in November. Really excited because, as we've talked about before, Matthew, we have been locked away in the moment for the last 18 months. And I know you've been doing some amazing work behind the scenes in getting Tradeport ready to go to market. So please tell us and the viewers, what is Tradeport?
Thanks, Lawrence. Well, Findex are really excited to announce the new platform that we've created, which is Findex Tradeport. And this is something which has been the culmination of 18 months as we've all been in lockdown. I've been actively working away with the data science team at Findex, and we've created Findex Tradeport, which is an integrated technology platform which utilizes artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms to automate complex global trade activities and derive predictive insights for the big data world of international trade.
Wow, it sounds pretty game-changing. Tell us what makes it unique. What makes Tradeport so unique?
Sure. As I mentioned, it's a collaborative exercise between the customs team, of which I lead within Findex, as well as the data science team. So in that combining of world-class data science and global trade and customs expertise, Findex Tradeport is a cloud-hosted platform and diagnostic tool that reads and analyzes your customs import declaration or even export declaration data to automate product classifications and duty calculations.
Wow, so it takes a lot of guesswork out of it and probably sounds like it fast-tracks things. Matthew, what type of businesses will best benefit from using Tradeport?
Certainly the key businesses which would find use for this tool would be those operating with global supply chains. So that could be either exporters or importers, logistics businesses as well, for a business development tool. Also, being a customs broker, I specifically created this product to help out those within industry to better manage their post-clearance audit. So it is a customs broker's tool, if I must say.
Yeah, well, it sounds pretty powerful. And I know that with all of the skills that brokers have, this would be a fairly powerful piece of equipment, if you like, or software, I should say, to have in their toolkit. Tell us about the commercial advantage of Tradeport, please, Matthew.
Certainly. So with significantly enhanced efficiencies, your focus can shift away from those strategic operations or can actually shift towards strategic operations based on informed decisions and risk mitigation through reduced classification errors. Understanding the importance of accurate product classification, Findex Tradeport uses AI to automate product code recognition, descriptions, and confirm classifications. As it gets smarter, the entire classification process is accelerated, facilitating faster workflows and providing greater control and visibility over your trade data. Featuring a customizable central data repository protected by state-of-the-art data security, duty analysis is optimized via interactive global mapping, dashboards, and scalable data integrations.
Wow. Well, I think that's it seems like it's got a lot of capacity there and capability. You know, for the viewers watching, Matthew, who are part of these global businesses, can we summarize why is Tradeport, why do businesses need Tradeport who have got global supply chains?
Definitely. I guess in summary, to provide you with the essence of Findex Tradeport. It is the digital automation solution that all customs and trade stakeholders need, providing the critical visibility and predictability over your trade data and tariffs, ensuring active management of costs, mitigation against the risks of non-compliance, and success in new and profitable markets.
Wonderful. Well, I think, we've all seen how complex global supply chains are becoming, especially during the last 18 months with COVID. So congratulations on all the work that you've been doing with Tradeport. I know you put a lot of blood, sweat and tears into it, and I'm really excited to be part of that launch with you personally at the event on the 25th of November here in Melbourne at the ATLC Springtime Soiree on the Pollywood side. So can't wait to see it in person, if you like, with you and showing the crowd and the audience all about its capabilities and its features. Thanks so much, Matthew.
Thank you, Lawrence. Pleasure to be here and looking forward very much to the Pollywood side event.
Fantastic. Look forward to seeing you there. Take care. Cheers.
From TradePlus24, a Melbourne-based fintech specialising in working capital solutions for growing Australian businesses. And I'm providing this week's finance update. I just love the topic of emerging growth and trade industries. It's really an industry that drives the world forward and is key to our future success. At TradePlus24, we have the pleasure of funding a number of businesses in this sector, and they're doing some really exciting things. It's great fun talking to the business owners around their plans. They've just got big brains wanting to tackle big problems. In terms of finance commentary for this week, I want to talk about three things. Recently announced anticipated changes to the ESOP rules, government grants, and working capital. So it's been reported this week that the Treasury are proposing some changes to employee share schemes where the shares, when liquidated, won't be taxed. It's great news for founders and attracting talent to the startup sector. All of you running businesses, if you haven't already, should start turning your attention to grants. It's an area that changes quite a bit, and it's really helpful to stay on top of it because it can provide some welcome capital to your business. The Research and Development Grant, for example, has had some recent changes and should be something that you look into. Talk to your accountant or utilise one of the specialised platforms that will facilitate grant applications on your behalf. Last but not least, I wanted to touch on working capital. It's absolutely critical for businesses to manage and know what their working capital cycle is. And now is a great time of year to be doing your cash flow forecast for next year. There's lots of options out there in terms of funding to provide support for working capital. We at TradePlus24 and many lenders like us are here and ready to help if you need. That's all for this week's episode. Don't be afraid to get in touch with me or any of the team at TradePlus24 if you think there's a way that we can help.
Welcome back, everyone. Now I'm joined by Alex Clifton from Edith Cowan University over in WA. Hi, Alex. How are you?
Hi, Lawrence. I'm good. Thank you. Yourself?
Fantastic. Good to see you again. Alex, first and foremost, please tell us about your role with ECU and what you're doing over there.
Okay. Well, I've spent most of my life in the transport industry, and now I've gone to the point of doing PhD in intelligent transport systems through Edith Cowan.
Wonderful. So intelligent transport systems really fits in with the theme of this week's episode, which is all around emerging trade, technology sectors and so forth for Australia and around the world. What do you see, especially in this transport piece, where do you see Australia fits on a global stage, and what do you see potentially happening in the future?
It's interesting. There's a whole load of disruptive technologies coming along as we see it at this present point in time. A lot of these are set to this magical timeline of 2030, which is really seeing us out to the end of this decade, and that's set to shake things up considerably on a global stage. Now, looking more inwardly at Australia, well, we have there's several opportunities, but there's also some challenges along the way to even get close to some of these targets that this technology might bring us. Some of the issues that we currently see in a developed country, we still have quite an aged commercial vehicle fleet. So that's obviously going to be a bit of a bottleneck there, especially when we get to the development and the adoption stage of this technology. So that I say would probably be our biggest pain point as we're currently positioned at the moment, that transition into the newer technology and the newer vehicles.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense. I think from my perspective, I'd love to get your ideas and feedback on this. When countries around the world talk about Australia, and especially things like transport sector and intelligent transport, they actually forget or don't realise how big Australia is as a landmass. You know, I've had presentations where we have Europe overlaid in the map of Australia, or Asia, and you're going through from WA to Melbourne, for example, or to Victoria, I should say. You're probably going through like 12 different countries in Europe, or if not more. So, when people talk about the transport challenges and opportunities, I think Australia is one of those very unique markets.
I agree. Yes, definitely. And just, I mean, that scale in perspective, I think WA alone, if you compare it into, say, the UK, for example, because we do see a lot of our development being benchmarked against the UK, which is a very difficult one to call, because not only is the geography completely different, but so is the population density, et cetera, et cetera. But if you take, for example, WA alone, it's something like 10 times the size of the whole UK. So, and obviously very sparsely populated in that respect. So yes, it does cause, it requires a totally different perspective, really.
Yeah. And I think just leading into that as well, Alex, when we're doing sort of transport fulfillment or modeling, when you look at your cost to serve modeling, I think one of the, as you say before, the challenges and equal opportunities are that if companies can get the right balance between efficiency, capacity, and even their fuel usage and so forth, that's when they can really stand out. But because we are a relatively small population, the density that you can try and maximize load bearing for transport is a real challenge for Australian companies. And therefore the price for freight, and even I suppose the inability to be efficient when it comes to utilisation and capacities can always be a challenge. What do you see? Are there new technologies that are coming in that can help that, whether it's software planning, load planning? I don't know. What are the type of things that you see coming down the line?
Well, it's all a combined package, really, Lawrence. What we see is this this new intelligent transport system. Well, that's quite a broad term, but within that, everything in our everyday life is now pretty much connected to the internet in some way. It's part of the Internet of Things and the bigger picture. Transport is making that transition. It's heading that way. It's heading that way quite fast. And just a bit of a background to that and the justifications, we're seeing for the first time ever, there's a paradigm shift taking place where vehicle manufacturers have now teamed up with tech giants such as Apple, Google, people like that. That's obviously very new to the scene. That's bringing a ton of technology into an already evolving transport sphere. As a result, this connectivity offers us an opportunity to be able to measure a lot more metrics than we've ever been able to. And of course, the favorite thing in management is you can't manage something if you can't measure it. So if we can measure this, these outputs, our efficiencies can change drastically overnight.
Yeah, very true. I think people now all over across supply chain, data is king. If you can get the right data and you get that real-time analytics, then you can start to be proactive and start to really pull some levers to make a positive change.
Very much so, yes, yeah.
Alex, what about the buzz stuff like electric trucks and you look at what Tesla unveiled about this really sexy driverless stuff and everything. Do you see that coming into Australia? And if so, is it a market that can work? Because we've got pretty poor infrastructure as we speak right now.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. It's obviously something that's taking shape. Recently here in WA, only a couple of weeks ago, we had an iDrive event, which was showing off some of this technology available from the car manufacturers, and there was discussions from local authorities, Department of Transport, etc. So there are plans afoot. There's things happening in the infrastructure. We're seeing a rollout of EV charging stations running all the way up the west coast here and across over to SA. So these kind of infrastructures are in the mix. They're scheduled to take place. So that's offering an opportunity there to shift to the battery electric vehicle type things. When it comes more to the commercial aspect, though, there's still this this kind of big discussion on what technology is going to win through, because battery electric vehicles, whilst they have obviously positive points in certain aspects, when you start talking about carrying heavy freight, things like that, there's a distinct downside with them having to carry bigger and bigger batteries. That's taking away payload capacity, so you're becoming more inefficient just in the nature of the technology that you're using. So there's this concept of obviously the hydrogen fuel cell. That's one that keeps popping up when we discuss this kind of thing, especially in a commercial and a freight environment. And it does look very good. There's a lot more work to be done in that area for sure, and there needs to be more incentives as well to uptake, either for the manufacturers to develop and obviously for the consumers to be able to get into that technology.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think, obviously, this is a very, as you said earlier, rapidly evolving discussion and sector. And, it's exciting to see how technology plays its part. And I think that even the manufacturers here in Australia are starting to see that there's an opportunity to be leading and transition between, let's say, old technology into new technology. How do you feel drivers would embrace this new stuff? I mean, there's a lot of great safety stuff that's really, making some huge inroads from a driver safety perspective. Do you think that some drivers are a bit fearful about some stuff like the driverless technology and other things?
Yes, definitely, and it's understandable. I mean, this is a huge shift from everything we've known to this point. I mean, effectively, short of the interim updates along the way, for 100 years, vehicles haven't really seen this kind of shift and this change in how we can operate and manage them. So it's understandable. There's going to be a degree of skepticism there, and that's why it's important to get it right. And from that perspective, we have definitely got an advantage with our sparsely populated area. We do have an advantage where we can apply this technology with a lower risk element in certain circumstances. And of course, coming from the mining sector, they've been doing autonomous vehicles for some time now. So there's a lot of knowledge there already in this sphere that we can build on. But down to the consumer level, say the person in the street looking to buy a car from a dealership, whatever it might be, it's actually getting that, disseminating the right information out at the time, and the clear, transparent information on what these technologies hold, what the pitfalls may be, the trade-offs, and some of the not so in-depth legislation, but some of what will become more general knowledge, like the level of autonomous technology and where it fits. That's going to be key to be able to get this information across and let the consumer have the information they need to make the informed decision.
Yeah. No, it's really, really interesting discussion. Just to wrap up, Alex, I'd love to ask, what do you see happening by 2030 here in Australia? And the second part to that question, how do you feel we're sort of, faring or rating against some of the other bigger markets when it comes to the uptake, or at least even the research and development of some of this innovation technology? So that sort of two-part question, if I could.
So 2030, well, it's going to be very interesting times ahead. Obviously, it's going to be a bit of a rocky road because there's going to be pain points with some of this tech coming in, like infrastructure. How do we get that out there? And at what point do you, if you're deploying infrastructure, at what point do those companies find their break-even point, and how's that going to be incentivized? So those pain points are definitely going to bring a rocky road. The saving grace we have there is, like I say, we've got a lot of skilled people here and knowledge on the autonomous sector from the mining industry, which is great. And there's a lot of technology being developed elsewhere in the world that trying to make this a global product. So it's not like we're trying to do it on our own, but our particular geography does lend itself to some speed bumps along the way, so to speak, if you pardon the pun. In terms of that, I think that really hopefully sums up the first part of your question. Technology going forward is something that we can do in-house here in Australia. There's no reason why not. Like I say, it links back to some of the development in which we pioneered in the mining industry from the autonomous side of things. So it would be great to be able to have that here, incentivize that, and develop that technology, especially for such a diverse geographical landscape that we operate in. So that would really put us, leaps and bounds onto the world stage there. So I think there's definitely an opportunity to be had there, and to be able to develop that technology, or certainly have a key stake in it, would be fantastic.
Yeah, I think you're so right, Alex. I think that with those unique innovation sort of, if you like, hotbed, especially around the mining sector, the met sector, that Australia can really showcase and potentially export all our technology and smarts to other markets around the world. So, that's the whole theme of today's episode, is to where can Australia look at emerging technologies and industry sectors for global trade opportunities. And I think, what you're sort of uncovering and discovering with your role with ECU, it's really exciting times. And I'd love to keep in touch with you over the coming months and to see how it evolves, and definitely keep all our viewers up to date as well.
Definitely. Yes, that'd be great.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Alex. Really good to see you again. Hopefully we get to see you in person sometime soon again. And wishing you all the very best. We'll take care.
Thanks, Lawrence. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Lawrence. Cheers. So coming up after the break, we'll be joined by James Scotland from the Australian Industry Group up in Brisbane. Stick around. We'll see you very soon after these short messages.
When the supply chain disrupts, we're here to keep you informed.
Import-Export TV is the only digital platform for supply chain, trade and logistics industry.
Delivering stories and conversations across the world, we provide informative, entertaining and educational services.
Delivering stories about emerging entrepreneurs to transport, logistics game changers and new technology, we're here for global trade, news and current affairs.
As a trusted digital streaming platform, we're the leading source of latest information to global importers and exporters, freight and logistics providers, technology and finance partners, including warehouse and distribution specialists, government agencies and industry associations.
Your channel for all things trade and logistics is only one click away at importexporttv.com. Welcome back, everyone. Now we're going to be joined by James Scotland, who is from the Australian Industry Group. Thanks so much for joining us, James. James, your job title is General Manager of Minerals, Energy and Supply Chain Resilience for the employer group, Australian Industry Group. Now, it's a big remit covering several important industries. What trends are you seeing in technology?
Well, it's nice to be here, Lawrence. It's always nice to chat with you. This is a big issue at the moment, isn't it? Minerals, energy and supply chain, they're going through major disruption, major transition to the post-carbon world. And so we're seeing three main things. We're seeing, we're calling it the 3Ds. We're calling it disruption, we're calling it decarbonisation and digitalization. All three are playing across the whole field: disruption, digitalization and decarbonisation. And in terms of disruption, I mean, the latest one, of course, is COVID. And that fundamentally changed the way in which we looked at our businesses, because we discovered, and we now know, we've discovered that the businesses that were the most prepared electronically, digitally, were able to react faster and survive better in the COVID era. Lots of things happened in that era, and it's clear that you need to have this new technology in place.
Yeah, well, you mentioned decarbonising a business as an emerging theme for technology. There's been a lot of talk lately, James, regarding Australia and Australian business getting to net zero emissions. What's happening in this area? There's a lot of emerging technologies, I assume, I mean, with everything on the radar at the moment.
Oh, there's so much happening, and it's hard to keep up with it. I mean, the Glasgow Climate Conference recently was confusing in and of itself, but coming out of that conference was the idea that businesses now understand across the globe that they need to get to a net zero world. Now, to get a net zero carbon emissions world, we need to know what the carbon emissions are. We need to track them across our own operation, and then transport in and out of our operation and across the greater economy. So we're moving into this digitalised way of operating our business in order to get to net carbon.
Yeah.
It's not just the idea of getting to net zero carbon, but also measuring it. So there's lots of technology being seen there. In terms of decarbonisation, man, there's a lot of things going on. The European Union said today, or last night, that they're going to put $1.1 billion into innovation. They're going to find the answers through money. 1.1 billion to find how to decarbonise.
It's a big amount, yeah.
Yeah, they've also, I mean, one of the other big things about decarbonising is this idea about electric vehicles. We can go to electric vehicles, and there is so much technology in that. Some people think it's like a motor car with a battery in it, but really it's not. It's more of an iPhone on wheels, and that gets a whole bunch of technology.
Yeah, very true. And on that same theme, James, I'm told transport is an area where there's a lot of technological development. I mean, further to that, what you're saying?
Yeah, well, they're talking, of course, in terms of hydrogen cars or electric cars. We don't know. I think it's going to be a bit like VHS and beta. Which way will we go? Yeah. Who knows just yet? But we will go down that path. Electric vehicles are going to be a whole new world. And these vehicles are not going to be like they were in the past. The other thing, of course, is that autonomous vehicles are already in place in many of the mine sites, and that's changing the way that the mines operate. A lot less people and a lot more technology. It's a completely different mine site these days.
Yeah, well, that's one of my questions I wanted to ask you as well, James. I mean, you mentioned the mining sector. What about the mining industry? There's so many things that are emerging there. I mean, the AIVs are just one of them, yeah.
Absolutely. So again, this week there was an announcement by a gold mine in the Pilbara, northwest WA, that they're going to, by the end of this year, have fully renewable energy as their power source. They're not going to be trucking in fuel anymore. They're not going to be running diesel engines. They're going to use electricity from wind farm and solar farm. There's a whole massive mine running on 100% renewable. Wow. And on top of that, there's also a lot of talk saying we don't need to send people down underground anymore. We can use technology to get people underground. But if we can fight a war overseas without going overseas, we can mine underground without going underground. Yeah. Technology everywhere, my friend.
No, well, thanks, James. I think, having you on the show really showcases some of these new emerging technologies that Australia really needs to take advantage of, because we've got so much capability in those sectors. I think it's probably not well recognised enough around the country. So, your role I see is so important to help companies, if you like, using that overused buzzword, pivot into old sectors, into these new emerging sectors and new technology opportunities.
Yeah, I think if you're thinking about your business the way you did when I went to business school, you're a dinosaur. Yeah. Think about it in terms of digitalization, disruption, and decarbonisation. And my role is to try and help you do that.
Yeah, I love it. I think, you play such an important role. I think you've got a great, breadth of experience across so many of these sectors, and AIG is definitely I'm sure, happy and very lucky to have you. So thanks so much for being on the show. It's been a pleasure, and looking forward to having you back on the show on a regular basis, hopefully, because I know that this is going to be a really hot space over the coming months and years. So I'd love to have some more regular discussions with you as things evolve even further.
Let's do that. Let's talk soon. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thanks, James. Speak to you soon. So there you've heard from James Scotland, and that wraps up today's episode of the Trade Australia Show. I'm your host, Lawrence Christoffelsz. Our show is always brought to you by Australian Trade and Logistics Corporation and our national partners. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great week. We look forward to speaking to you again very soon. Take care.